This might just be the most historically significant beer you'll ever get to taste. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Oktoberfest may nearly be over, but we're not leaving Germany just yet. Today I'm taking a look at this. It is Paulaner's Salvator, and as I said in the intro, it's just about the most significantly historic beer in the world. Now, I have no doubt there will be other breweries with other beers trying to make the same claim, but this one certainly is a top contender. I'm not going to give you the full historical rundown of it in this video. There are plenty of other videos out there that already do that. I'm actually interested in the beer itself and telling you what it's like, but I'll give you a very minimized version. Almost 400 years ago, this beer was brewed for the first time by the monks at the Salvator Abbey, or whatever the German equivalent of that is. Those monks actually originated from Italy, as we've seen a lot with European and Trappist monk religious-based beers. People moved around quite a lot, but they settled in Bavaria and were effectively the foundations for Paulaner as we know it today. This beer, though, was a cheeky little sidestep to stop the monks having to go through the fasting period before Easter without consuming anything really at all. These monks were allegedly very devout, but did notice a little clause in the kind of rules around their fasting, and it did say they were allowed to take on the oils of plants. Well, hops and malt technically have oils, although I think we'd argue a little bit on the malt side today. But anyway, that's why they made it. Nice, big, strong beer, 7.9%er, and it effectively kept them going. That part is a little cheeky enough, but actually what they then did was started to give away and sell the beer, which they weren't actually allowed to do. Many breweries who were allowed to sell their beer at that time petitioned to have it shut down and closed off and stop them doing it, but unfortunately, apparently the beer was just that good that the officials kind of just took a blind eye to it because, well, they wanted to keep drinking it too. Now, undoubtedly and admittedly from Paulaner, they have tweaked the recipe very gradually over the years. Of course, the ingredients that they used 400 years ago will not be the same as they are today, but the essence of the beer remains, and right now we're going to find out, well, is it any good? I do need to admit, I have had one bottle of this in the past. I bought it for review about 18 months ago, and it never happened. It sat in the back of my fridge for ages. I don't know why, I didn't fancy it, and then I drank it one day, just sat chilling at home, and I was like, I've made a mistake here. I remember liking it, but I don't really remember a lot about it, so this is effectively a fresh look for me. And from all the information I've researched, this is typically served in a stemmed glass, so sadly I won't be able to use any of my new Paulaner glassware, but we're back to the old trusty stemmed Allegra. So let's get it open. Just before we break into it though, here is a quick look at the bottle. I mean, look at that. It is a fantastic looking label on there. Is that a monk? And it looks like maybe someone of real regal or regional importance on there, maybe harking back to that story, but there you go. It is a Doppelbock style, although the Salvator actually came first before the name Doppelbock, which is quite interesting. There is a load of info on the back there, but I suspect most of it is in German. I'll have a quick read later, but yeah, we might not be able to get into too much of that. Right, time to get it open. Right then, all of the beer is in the glass, but I'm just going to let that settle down a minute while I tell you about Doppelbock itself. And as a style, Bock, the original form of the word, just means strong and sweet lager, effectively. And a Doppelbock, well, yeah, you guessed it, it's just a stronger and sweeter lager, to the point that you get something that looks like this. And just look at the colour on that. I mean, it's about as far away as a lager you're going to get before you hit into stout territory. It looks very dark and brown on camera. With the light behind it from where I'm sat, it's got this beautiful kind of reddy orange glow. It's got a nice kind of, it's not a bad looking head, it's a little bit foamy, and it's just an off-white. It's an off-white. If I hold it away from the light though, it's more red depth than brown, as I think it's coming across on camera. But otherwise, it just looks absolutely stunning. It is hazy as hell. There's nothing you can see through that whatsoever. But yeah, it looks absolutely stunning. Right then, it has controlled itself a bit now, so on to the aromas. On the nose, it's reminding me a lot of Weiss beers, if I'm honest. It's got that kind of punchy, sweet, yeasty notes, the sweet shop notes. Some cherries and red berries going on in there. And underneath it all is this huge, thick, cakey, deluxe malt base that, well, no, it's better. It's better than cakey. It's like the most deluxe, slightly naturally sweet bread. Like, I'll be honest, there is a reason for that. And I was just about to say that the malt base on this was reminding me very much of the Paulaner Oktoberfest beer. And that's because it's the same Munich malt, that slightly darker malt. They use that in this and in their Oktoberfest beer. And it does have that very similar, almost kind of honeyed loaf thing. I said that about this year's Oktoberfest beer from Paulaner. It's very much true in this. This just feels like a bigger, again, more amped up version of that beer. The yeast notes are much more prominent. There's a few more sweet edges to it. But yeah, it smells very, very good indeed. Right then. Let's get into it, shall we? Cheers. Ooh, okay. For me, the Doppelbock is where Germany meets Belgium. Not physically, although they are connected at one end, but it's kind of the opposite end for Munich. But it brings that delicious, super bready, mineral heavy, just excellence of the Munich lager. And it brings it together with some more yeasty notes, a few more sweet notes, and then a level of complexity that I more associate with a lot of the Belgian brewers. And they fuse those together into something that, for me, might just be perfection. But this beer isn't perfect. This beer, the core recipe, is nearly 400 years old. And as I said, of course, it's changed a bit, but it is 400 years old, therefore the techniques, the process, the amounts, the ingredients, everything is a little bit old school, and it does show. But that is kind of part of its charm as well. You could have done a few different things here with the hops and with the amount of malt to really balance this out into something absolutely insane, but they haven't. They've kept this kind of slightly rough, dry aesthetic in the... aesthetic? Doesn't look like it, but you know what I mean. It has this sharper... sharp's the wrong word, but it has a rough edge in the middle, but everything around that is so impossibly good that it just adds character. It's not, bear with me non-car people here, and I'll make this really brief. There's a concept amongst people that love cars, is that basically the cars that you really, really like are the cars with faults, because if a car is perfect, it becomes boring. And this is really what that's doing. It has got imperfections. It's a little bit washy in places. Sometimes the bitterness spikes up and jumps back down again. There's no great fluidity to the taste profile. And if this had been brewed with cheaper ingredients in a less, let's say, authentic or cared for way, I would have said, actually, it's awful. There's no balance to it. It's not very good. But just because there is so much brilliant about it, those brilliants are almost highlighted by a few little flaws. And that really just, it makes it an event. It is a proper occasion beer. Right then, so you know what I'm waffling on about. Top to bottom taste test time. So initially, good carbonation, a little bit of kind of semi-sweet, semi-acidic, kind of red fruit notes at the front of the tongue. First third of the tongue, the hops and the yeast come together to create a little melody of flavours. There's this kind of really earthy, almost mossy note from the green hop, and then that Weiss beer style yeast comes into play, brings a bit of sweetness with it, and you end up with a proper, it's almost like a sweet and sour thing, but not quite that extreme, if that makes sense. But it balances well. It's nice, it's interesting, like you're never bored getting through this. Mid phase, that dark malt comes in, little hint of chocolate in there, I suspect, backed up by that proper good mineral water quality that we talked about in all the Oktoberfest beers. And then as it gets to the back, big ramp up in bitterness, a few dark chocolate notes this time, but there is still a tiny bit of that kind of sweet shop foam sweet esters you get from the yeast just clinging on, just to keep it fun and interesting, and yeah, I don't know, just to keep it not ever going too far in one direction. And then on the aftertaste, yeast comes back in stronger that time. This is where it's sitting a bit more like a Belgian ale, although I have no doubt that this actually was around before them, and actually some of their stuff was based off this, to be honest. But in modern terms, that's what it's reminding me of. And I have to say, the prolonged aftertaste is just slightly dry, slightly bitter. And the bit we haven't talked about yet is how much this doesn't taste nearly 8%. Like, honestly, 7.9%, and at no point in there do you go, oh, that's boozy. Like, it's full-bodied, it's rich, it is decadent, but it's never, oh, that's naughty. Like, there's no booze spike. I feel like I'm getting a bit warm now, but I'm halfway down it, so that is probably to be expected. But to say this recipe is as old as it is, that is really impressive. Like, it does not taste its ABV at all, and it's just thoroughly enjoyable. I'll be honest, I bought 3 of these, and I have no regrets. Right then, I'm going to take a quick look at the bottle to see if there's anything on here we can make out and is of interest. It says it's a Doppelbock / Stark beer, specialty beer, double malt, bot beer. Unsurprisingly, it's water, malt, hops, and yeast, and nothing else. Straight to the purity law with this one. And that is, I think, about all we're going to get. I have just noticed on the label here that it says 05-2021. I hope that's when it was bottled, and because it's so strong it's infinitely good, because if that's the best before, then I've been done over here, because I bought these a couple of weeks ago. And we'll check that one out. But yeah, otherwise, not a lot to say about it. And even if it is vastly out of date, well, it's still incredible. As I say, it's not perfect, it's a bit thin in places, that head is dissipated. It's, you know, it's splooshy, it's splashy, it's rustic, it's a little bit up and down, but it's kind of all to its benefit. The package as a whole, well, I can see why it was enjoyed so much and people tried to ban it, because that's some damn good party juice. There you go then, Paulaner Salvator. Have you tried it? Are you going to? I got this from Beers of Europe. I don't know if they've still got it in stock right now. I'll put a message on the screen once I've had a look. But even if it's not, it does come back around quite often. I think you can sign up for a stock alert thing on their website. But yeah, that really is everything. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you would be so kind. And I will catch you next time. Cheers.